Hello guys and welcome back to the another class of our course about Python. So until now we saw many interesting things about Python and how to use it. We talk about loops and everything, but since we are still talking about loops, I decided to create a small app with you guys where we will practice our for loop together as well as our if statement, and you guys will see what you can do with all this. And at the same time we are going to create some fun stuff. So very simple, what I decided to create today is that, well, for example, when there are communications on WhatsApp or let's say Telegram or whatever app, what's happening is that those communications are encrypted. So I decided to create a encrypting engine to be able to conversation. So what we will do, as I explained, we will do encrypting engine. So this engine will simply encrypting, let's say, all the words that we will write down. So let's say write down word. So this engine will encrypt our word. So let's start. So very simple. What we want to do right now? Well, let me just explain how this will work. So our encrypting engine will encrypt each letter by a number. So let's say for example, we have a letter A, letter B, letter C, and each letter we will have number or a certain symbol, and our user will write down a sentence where the password, and our encrypting engine will just encrypt everything. So let's start. The first thing I will ask you guys to do is write down a function. So to start function, we need to write down def and give a name to this function. So in this case, the name of our function will be, for example, let's say crypted. Alright, so once open up parenthesis and what exactly our user will encrypt. So he will encrypt sentence our word. You can write down sentence or whatever you want. Alright, so here start our encryption. So we will have an encryption, and for now encryption will put nothing. So you understand later why we need encryption. Alright, so right now how this will work, it's very simple. We need to start with our for loop. So in this case, for every element in sentence, because once again we need to each element, it could be for every letter. When our user will enter a sentence, let's say just hello. So every element in hello or for every letter in hello, we are looking to change one letter by one number. So let's say for example, every element in our sentence, element in sentence. Once again, you need to use same words here. So what I want to do, so I want Python to verify if the element is equal to A. So in this case, if the element is A, because we will change our letter A first, so we will write down if element in A. So what does this mean? Let me explain. So the logic is very simple here. We have our sentence that the user will enter. We want Python to verify for each element in our sentence. If this element in A, so if there is a big A or a small a in our sentence, we put together. So it doesn't really matter because Python will verify this letter is in our sentence. Then if there is a letter, what we want to do, we simply want to add our encryption. So in this case, it's going to encryption. Encryption will be equal to encryption plus 1. Alright, so what does this mean? Our encryption for now is equal to 0. What we want to do, by writing encryption equal to encryption plus 1, this means we will add 1 here and then in this case we'll change our a by 1. So this is what all this means. So this is good way to change our first letter by 1. As you can see, it's very simple. In this case, translation here, we write here instead of encryption, simply translation for better understanding. It's gonna be way easier for you to understand. Alright, so right now we got everything. Next thing that we want to do, that exact same thing for each letter of the alphabet. So for letter B, letter C, letter D and other letters. So how exactly we do this? Very simple. We simply copy if statement right here. So we can copy it and paste it here. And instead of letter A, we will use letter B. But it's very important since we are working with a if statement, that is another if statement will be ellipse. Because once again we are working with a if statement and if statement that is another if statement. Great. And not forget to change here 1 by 2. So what you understand from here, so here what we have, so def function. So right here we ask Python for each element in our sentence. If our element is equal to a, we want to add 1 to our element. So instead of having a, become 1. So what this means, when this part is done, we want to verify the same thing for b. If you have b, we want to change our b by 2. So this is the first part of our encryption. So the next thing that we want to do is for each and every letter that we have. So simply copy, let's say our ellipse statement, and paste it. And instead of writing B, it's going to be C. And instead of gonna be 2 here, it's gonna be 3. As you can see, it's very easy. I want to ask you guys to do right now is simply do the exact same thing for the letters of the alphabet. So at the end, they should give you something that look like this. As you can see, I have all my letters here and each of my letter is replaced by symbol. Alright, if in this case that all this is not respected when we want to return, well, it's very simple. We want Python to return translation plus element. So in this case, translation is equal to nothing and plus element else, and then translation will be equal to translation plus element. Great. And at the end we return translation. Great. So as you can see right here, what we can understand here is that letter of our alphabet will be changed by a number. So in this case, let's say for example, letter A will be changed by 1, letter B will be changed by 2, and letter C will be changed by 3. Right now, what we want to print exactly, so it's very simple. We will ask our user to write down a sentence or a password or whatever, and this password will be encrypted. So how do we ask our user to print something? It's very simple. We will use our print function and write down our crypted. So the name of our function here is crypted. So we will write down crypted. But inside our encrypted, we want to ask our user to write down a sentence. So how exactly we ask our user to write down a sentence? We will use our input function. So I write down input, and in this case we will ask our user to write down a sentence. We'll tell him what do you want, to crypt. Great. So here is our function. So you can see we have our function right here that is created. Our function name is crypted. Our function changes letters by number or symbols. And here we ask Python to print our function in which we will ask our user to write down a sentence. So if we run our code to see what it looks like, and our code asks us what do you want to crypt. So let's say I want to crypt hello, my name is someone. As you can see, our encryption is done. We can write anything that we want. Let's say for example, hello, I love pizza. As you can see, all the symbols are not encrypted. Since we didn't define an encryption for our symbols, but if you guys wanted to find encryption for our symbols, well, you can do it. So you can see here we have everything that we ask Python to encrypt. Alright, so I hope you guys understand what I will ask you guys to right now to do practice everything that we just saw. So that's it for this class guys. Right now you know how everything works. We created our small project and see you all in our next class.